Welcome to Can't Stop the Pop, the podcast where we, that's me, Craig,
and me, Matt,
do a deep dive on a song from the 90s or noughties. And we have a special guest with us this week. What's your name and where do you come from?
Hi there, my name's Shaun. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Welcome.
Our pleasure. We're very excited. So, obviously, Craig, we've got a special guest. So, Shaun, you're now part of the conversation.
Ooh.
So, Craig, what song are we doing this week? If you can't guess from all the branding going on.
Yeah, so we thought we'd do Steps, Here and Now, funnily enough.
Amazing.
So, Shaun,
Yes.
don't mean to put you on the spot,
Ooh.
but tell us about how you came to be aware of Steps in the 90s and noughties.
Oh, I think. How could you not be aware of them in the 90s? Really, I think. I was saying this the other day. I think Steps are. I remember being really into the Spice Girls, but I was probably just a year or two too young to be like properly obsessed with them. Whereas Steps were just obviously that next half of a wave later, and I think they were the first pop stars that I was like, I love them, like just fully in. I think I remember having like, and also, not only did I love them musically and like the whole pop fun of it, but I remember I look back on it now and I think of things like my dad taking me to buy their album, my uncle giving me Steps merch for Christmas, that kind of thing. And I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, that's my family telling me that like, it's okay, Shaun. Like, do you know what I mean? So I feel like they're quite like significant in different, all sorts of different ways. But I think they were the first act that me as a kid, I think, because when did they count? Was it 90? Oh God. 97? Was that the first?
97 was 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I would have been like 9, 10 when they came out. And that was when I was like, I'm in. Like the Top of the Pops magazine, Top of the Pops on TV. Just fully bought into it, which looking at the mise-en-scène here, looks like you guys were perhaps similar.
I mean, I only heard of them last week. Like, this is a new venture for me. There's nothing.
I think actually a lot of people who listen to that will have a very similar experience. I definitely think the Spice Girls is sort of an entry point into pop music, and it was like, now I can actually get into a group and really get into them. Definitely.
100%.
I felt that it was just like, I've said this before. I've said it when we did the Deep Shade of Blue episode, that like for me, Steps was like me and my brother growing up as like, and we're still very much friends. We're very good friends, and he also has a pop music podcast, but it's about really cool music, whereas we do this, which is even better. And I feel like, as you say, Spice Girls was the entry level, and Steps was like most people of our generation's first real pop obsession. So on that, I mean, if anyone is listening to this and doesn't know who Steps are, why are you here? But also, welcome. So for kind of rundown about them, started in 1997. They had an incredible run at the time, was like record-breaking run of top 5 singles until 2001. And they famously split up on Boxing Day, which everyone was, still sad about from, eating their Christmas dinner. And then it's traumatic. And then reunited 10 years later for an infamous and really iconic Sky documentary, which so good. And then released new music from 2017 onwards to now, and have kind of just like been a rare breed of pop group that have rekindled the nostalgia, brought the old fans along, kept going. And just iconic. One of a kind.
Yeah.
So, Craig, do you want to tell us about the song?
So, Here and Now was released. So, I've made lots of notes on this because we're gonna disagree on this song. So, Here and Now was released on the 4th of June 2001, but actually, if you read magazines at the time, it was actually advertised as being released on the 28th of May, and they sort of quietly changed the release date really close. So there's loads of adverts that show the wrong release date. But it was released on the 4th of June. It was a double A side with You'll Be Sorry. And both songs were remixed for the single. And to give some context, it had been 5 months since Steps had released their previous single. And one of the things that I think really characterized Steps is they were so relentless in the way they released singles. We've talked about that before. And there was a real gap here, and it was really noticeable. They went off to America, they went off to Europe, and they really started chasing success elsewhere. So this was sort of the album campaign had almost stopped. The album was at the top 75. The album campaign had almost finished. And then they came back and released this double A side as the final release from Buzz.
I mean, my question then about it is, one of the songs was technically a cover, wasn't it? Like Here and Now was technically recorded by someone else first, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of those songs that had been recorded by another artist, but wouldn't have been known. You wouldn't get, I mean, you would still do it these days, but it was much easier to do because people just wouldn't have heard the original.
Yeah.
And I think Here and Now was the obvious single. It was obvious single from the moment you listened to Buzz. I felt this is going to be a single. It was obviously written by co-written by Andreas Carlson, so it's the Swedish songwriters which they started to dabble in for Buzz. It was such an obvious single, and the remix I think makes it 100 times better. The single edit.
Oh, it's so good. The sound trade mix, I believe is what it's called. It's just like it just beefs up the production. It cuts out a section of the song, which is kind of like the clappy hands breakdown bit, which they sometimes done on tour. But I love that it gives all good old Claire Richards the extra 2 beats to hold the here and now. They give like an extra like 2/4 bar for any of the people who are into their music and understand bar numbers.
God, Matt, it's like you're
Shaun,
auditioning for a musical.
Shaun, do you have any specific memories about this song in particular?
Not really. Like when I read, like not as in like, I remember really enjoying it. I remember much preferring Here and Now to You'll Be Sorry, although I really like those. But I remember it jumping out at me when I first listened to Buzz. Buzz, I got into trouble over because I asked for it for Christmas, and then or my birthday, both are in December. But then we went out shopping, our family, in the album probably would have come out in Q4 at some point. We went Christmas shopping, and I went to WH Smith and I bought it. And then my mum was like, my best friend's already bought you that for Christmas. Take it right back. So I remember I was trying to get my hands on it, but I had to wait a little bit longer. But I do remember loving this song. I don't think I had the CD single of this. So listening to it now in the streaming era and hearing the sound trade version, it's just like Here and Now, like it's there it is, there she is.
There you go.
It just sounds like it's just been like yassified, doesn't it? And I love the original clap along chorus and all. But once you listen to the single version, you really can't go back, can you? It's just like your ears have been cleared. It's like you got an airwaves or something. I
love listening to. So I don't know if I was really weird, but I used to really love pitching up songs when I was little. Like with tape players, you could make them play at double speed. I used to be really obsessed with that.
Did you invent TikTok?
I think I did.
You're ahead of the curve.
And the single edit, that's literally what it does. Not quite so extreme, but if you listen to the two side, it's literally been pitched up.
Yeah.
And that just, for me, automatically makes it so much better. Yeah, and I love the single edit. Yeah, I couldn't. It really bugs me that the Ultimate Collection had the album version on, and the Gold Tour they performed the album version, and it used to really bug me. And I think that's where with this single, I don't want to like get into an argument really early. To me, it felt like a bit of an afterthought. If I'm honest, Here and Now got a lot of effort, but I did feel like it was like, oh, we forgot to release the single in the UK. Quick, let's pick 2. Let's do some radio edits and get them out there. And I just think sometimes it gets forgotten a little bit in the grand scheme of things.
Was this their first double A side where it wasn't like rolling on to the next album? So because not only was it a few months after It's the Way You Make Me Feel. Would that have been the one before that? Which I might be wrong here. I remember that song being huge. Not only was it a few months after that, as you said, but also it wasn't doing what their previous AA sides would have done, which I guess was throw forward, if you will. So yeah, I can understand how it might have felt at the time that like it was sort of like reviving the album, if you will, rather than like anything else. But it's just shame. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those singles that I still remember this. I bought both CD, obviously 2 CDs and a tape, bought them all.
Oh, and it was CD1, CD2 days.
Absolutely. It was one of those
mean
that
this
had
CD2?
Oh my goodness, yes, exactly, that one. It was one of those where the single mix of Here and Now was on one CD and the single mix of You'll Be Sorry was on another.
Oh, clever.
And I remember at the time even thinking, oh, that's pushing things a bit.
Yeah. See Taylor Swift with her 400 different versions of her album now. That's
honestly.
Yeah.
I also find it really interesting that because we've talked about it, but we've not really delved into it before. About it really was an era where, in order to give that little bit of extra, you must buy the single. They would make these single mixes, whereas I think by today's standard, a single mix is often just a radio edit that maybe they've cut it down. They've not reproduced it. The last pop reproduction of a complete song from scratch that I've sort of can think of in my head is probably like Untouchable by Girls Aloud or something. But like when it comes to Steps, like quite a few of their songs they did this for, and it was such a thing that was being done at the time. And then I remember, Craig, you've said there's been a few instances where you've gotten like greatest hits collections or like repressings of something, and it's actually ended up being the original album versions because they've not got the original masters from them today. It's just interesting because for a while also there was a point on streaming where I think, as you say, it didn't match up, and I think the single edit of You'll Be Sorry was wrong in its programming, and it kept
don't
cutting
talk to me
off.
about that. I don't know her. Yeah. I don't acknowledge it.
I don't know.
That's off the best
Honestly.
bit. Not. It's like you go from a really good radio edit to a really unnecessary one. You'll Be Sorry. Just I know this isn't about You'll Be Sorry, but they cut off the best bit anyway. I'm so bitter about it, but I do remember specifically around this song and this single. This was also the first single that I remember being released when I had the internet, and I remember downloading the remixes and the B-side off of Napster. So it's also that new that sort of that crossover into that new era of the singles. The singles now are competing against the internet. I remember getting all of this finding it all off of Napster. So it felt like that new era. I sort of think about Steps in the 90s as being pre-internet mostly. But it was getting to that time when we were starting to think about other ways of obtaining music. Someone's going to come for me and arrest me now, aren't they? I'm going to have to pay royalties.
Oh, God. It's a different time to be alive.
Speaking of B-sides, was the B-side of this one just like the first time?
It was indeed. It was indeed.
What a you need a spin-off episode for that song.
So we literally discussed this before we brought you on, and we were like, we're going to have to talk about the B-side because obviously it's just like the first time, which you could do a whole Lisa Scott Lee multiverse about that song. Just what a song, what a journey. And I'm so happy that song ended up on the Platinum Collection. Like, I love that they put it on the 2-disc version because it was almost such a nudge, wink, wink to the fans of like, we know it should have been a single, but you got it eventually. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, they really went out of their way to make that really difficult to get back in at the time. Obviously, it was a B-side I think it was specifically to the You'll Be Sorry CD. It was a B-side, right. But then The Last Dance, they remixed it and put it on. They kept remixing it. I mean, it doesn't need a remix. It's an incredible song. Does it belong in the Buzz era? Probably not. But it's an incredible song.
There's bits of the backing track of that song. I swear, it's "Love's Got a Hold of My Heart." Like, there's bits of the production. I'm like, is it the same song? Not complaining. I love both, but I was like, is it like I forgot that it was from that era because to me it sounds so steptacular-y.
Yeah,
it's so
it
it's
was.
the synths that it's using and all of those. I just love as hell. You talk about the remix. I like the WIP remix of it, but I just love that any remix that they did, they would just put the drums from Last Thing on My Mind just in like everything,
Oh, no,
just to make
always.
it even more stepsified.
Amazing.
Right, let's talk then about the video. Shaun, what are your thoughts on the video to Here and Now?
It's comment like I love it because it's like it's steps going into their new like not cool era, but like I guess slightly cooler era. Like H has got his tinted shades, Lee's got his patch on his trousers on, but it's still so like like there's a bit at the beginning of the video where like Faye turns around into the maze and the turn is just so showbiz. It's like shoulder turn, and I'm like I love it because even when they're being like cool, it's still steps, which I love. And there's a whole like dance break version of that video now, isn't there? Which is most pleasing to me. I've been as a fan of the show. I know dance breaks are highly what's the word? Favoured.
Well,
we have break.
This is a necessary one, which is why that we have our new jingle for a necessary dance break. Yeah, I love this video, and me and Craig will get into it because we've already had a little pre-disagreement about this. I think that this is one of Steps' slickest videos, and I really loved when they did the recent for all of the videos for 25th, they did like a kind of a HD or a 4K upscale, and then as you say, they did a dance break version. And I just think it's quite a high budget video, like it's 2001, and I feel like they put a lot of money and effort into this as a single on the end of the album. I just love it. I love all the greens. It's still so camp. As you say, Faye doing that like lying down and then like opening her eyes sort of thing. It's just it's
the shot of Lee where he's like Lee is fully cuddling that hedge. It's brilliant. I love it.
But I love it. But Craig, darling, what are your thoughts?
So I agree with all of those points, and it looks great. It like the colors now in the upscale, they absolutely pop. But for me, almost everything about that video is what I don't think of as Steps. I don't think of them with tinted shades, and they look really aloof. They look like they're trying not to have fun, and I watch it and I just think that's not what I think of when I think of Steps. I watch it and I think I disassociate it. To me, that looks more like what H and Claire were trying to do with DJ than what Steps were doing. And I'm sorry.
Is that in? Do you mean in terms of like the look or like the concept?
I think the look, and I get that they had to evolve their look. But I look at something like Stomp, and I look at the way they did it there. It was a little bit more adult, but they managed to get into. They still had the fun, and I feel like here and well, I know, but I look at here and exactly. Like I look at here and now, and I just think to me, I'm gonna say something awful. I'm getting so cancelled in this episode. To me, it's the closest they ever looked to just going through the motions. They don't look interested anymore. It looks like, we've got to go back and do this video. Let's try and make it not as embarrassing, and let's just get it done. To me, that's what I see when I watch it. Compared to Chain Reaction that came after it, and compared to It's the Way You Make Me Feel before it, this just sits in the middle as something I just. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
to throw a spanner in the works. To be honest, Craig, now the more you say it, more. I love the video. I really, really do. But I do think Shaun will probably be the person to ask, because he's now in the Steps. He's in the Steps multiverse, as we will touch on shortly. But I think they've all said in interviews, especially in their infamous Sky documentary, which you've not watched, please go watch. They said that at this point, they kind of were over it. Yeah. And they were definitely not really... There's an interview I saw with them literally around the time of promoting this single. Pretty sure it was on like GMTV. And they either look hungover or they look like they've flown from a different country, landed straight there. And they look so overworked. And they're just like sat there. At least two of them are in sunglasses. And you sort of think they are tired. They have been working consistently. So maybe there was a bit of that. And maybe, you know, deep down, as we know, H and Claire were gearing up for a lovely Boxing Day announcement. Oh. And so maybe there was an element of they were done. But I don't think it comes across in the video.
Well, I remember really thinking at the time that, like, the time of that documentary, that world's best documentary from that must be like over 10 years ago now, mustn't it? Anyway,
yeah, it's
looking back on that, yeah, retroactively looking back and be like, yeah, you can see it. But now I watch it now and I don't see it as much. You know what I mean? I remember when they first said, "Oh, we were very knackered at the time." I was like, "Oh yeah, you can really tell." Oh, you can really tell. Now when I look back, I'm like, "Oh no, I still think they're giving it the cool, like, yeah, I don't know, interesting."
I mean, I just love all the hedges. I literally was just going to say, I was watching the Top of the Pops performance before, and I love that they decked the Top of the Pop studio out in hedges. That's commitment to the theme of the video.
See,
I love that.
Thought they were checking out at this point. They've got.
And then I thought, I'll look at CD UK and I'll look at, I think they did Blue Peter, and see if they didn't take the hedges with them, but I think they had a stage with a big flower on one of them, and obviously that is, so the video ends with, this is like the ultimate twist of music videos. The videos, they get to the middle of the maze and they get in the middle of a flower and it turns into a spaceship and it shoots off,
blooms, and then like goes out.
Yeah. And then that is the start of the You'll Be Sorry video, and the whole thing was that they linked them together. I would say it's a very tenuous link, if I'm honest.
I also would say that I think Here and Now definitely got the budget. Whereas You'll Be Sorry definitely got tagged along with the video, and it's so funny when you see the upscale of that one. Like, I remember watching a on the Gold Greatest Hits DVD. It's now on YouTube. They did an audio commentary for almost all of the songs, and there's a point where they talk about You'll Be Sorry, and then they end up giggling. They're going, "Oh, it looks really cheap, doesn't it?" Just with like the set. But yeah, I love Here and Now. It's great. And we all, you know, we've got different opinions in the video, but you know, we live and we learn. Right, Craig, where did it chart? What did it sell? You've already touched on the album campaign. But yeah, is there any other facts about it?
So it peaked at number 4, sold about 112,000 copies. So it made it the 114th biggest seller of 2001, and it's actually their lowest selling single from their original run. So Words Are Not Enough outsold it, and actually even Scared of the Dark has outsold it. So in some respects, it very much does feel like that it was probably the sort of coming to the end. So the lowest seller, but weirdly, despite being their lowest seller, it has remained quite prominent, hasn't it? It's been done on a couple of tours. I remember the whole, you know, what the actual fuck, I'm gonna have to censor that, when they opened the Ultimate Tour with Here and Now and You'll Be Sorry. It was such a, what on earth? Like, I remember people looking around the arena going, what is yeah, that tour.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that tour. I remember it opening the tour and people going, "What are these two songs?" So weird.
Whereas
it's just
I screamed. I was like, "Yes!" And like no one, quite a few people around were like, this isn't what we expected. I think it was genius for it open it though, because what it meant was that they didn't hit with a massive hit. They sort of got you back in. It was a song so that everyone got a solo line. That's the thing about this song, is that it's one of the few Step singles in which every member gets a solo line in the verses. So it gave them an opportunity when they were in those tubes to do each individual bit. But they did it again on the What the Future Holds tour.
I love that
as
mix.
Part of the. Oh, it's so good. I mean, I was, we're kind of skipping ahead, but I was hoping that was going to be a way for them to revive that mix somehow in said future show. But yeah, absolutely love it. Great, Craig. Well, shall we start the most exciting part of this episode now and let our special guests take the floor?
There's a more exciting
To
part.
dance.
Yeah. No, we wouldn't do that to you. Well, we need to ask you some. We need to ask you some questions. I remember. Well, Matty, one of your questions. Not that I want to steal your question. Was despite Here and Now being their lowest seller and probably one of the group's less known singles, why did you name a musical after it?
I feel like, well, when I did, so I'm going to take you back in time. Back in 2017, I did like an unofficial Steps musical above a pub in London, 0 budget, no, like completely unauthorized, blah, 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 blah. That was called 5678. And there was absolutely no reason for it to be called 5678. I think it was set in an office and we said the company was called 5678 Inc. And that was how we justified the title. But when Adam from their management team came to watch that, and then a few years later, after they'd been working on their musical for a bit, I think my name must have come up somehow, and they were like, let's get him in and have another look at that, like that concept as a rough draft of an idea. I think I wanted to change the title anyway, just to make it clear that it was a new thing. I think there was a general feeling across the board that title wasn't quite right. But the thing is as well, like most of their biggest hits don't really fit the mood of the show. Like we couldn't really call it like One for Sorrow. No shade to the Diana musical that never was, but we couldn't really call it One for Sorrow.
Oh yeah,
couldn't really call it like Tragedy or Better Best Forgotten. Like we couldn't. None of these names really fit. And Here and Now was one of the names that I had in the ether. I think Summer of Love was in the ether as well. But the more we worked on it, that name just felt like it fitted the most. And now looking at the show we've got now, I'm like, yeah, Here and Now definitely is the one that feels like it most fits. So I guess that's it, really. It just feels like it fits like the most. If yeah, that's it.
Great. Well, it's because the reason why we were going to say it was whether it was we were sort of asking if it was a conscious decision because it was not one of their major hits. But
yeah,
that sounds really, really interesting. I loved when the announcement came out because there'd been whispers, there'd been rumors, shall we say? Some people were like checking online. So when it finally was announced, I was like, you know what? I think that's an amazing name. We're both very excited to see the show. We're very excited.
I feel like I wasn't for the reason that it's not up there on it's not on disc 1 on the Platinum Collection, let's say. So because it wasn't a disc 1, it is track 1 on disc 2. But anyway, because it wasn't a disc 1 song, it felt like the right title to me, but I was like, I don't know if people are going to want this title. But then everyone around the table was like, oh yeah, that title, that sounds good. So I feel like, yeah, hopefully when it's seen, everyone will be like, oh yeah, Here and Now, yeah, that works. Yeah.
Well, keeping it with the musical, we've kind of roughly touched on it, but why do you think that Steps music works so well for musical theatre and for a show like this?
I think because it's really, they've said this those times. I know that anyone who likes their music will agree and says it all the time, but their songs are very the packaging of a lot of their songs is very fun and vibrant, but then if you look at the lyrics to some of them, it's like, oh my god, that's quite like the lyrics to Deep Shade of Blue, like my god. And that didn't really hit me until Claire did her acoustic version, whenever it was that 2014, 2015. I was like, oh my god, this song's actually quite depressing. And I feel like with a lot of their songs, they're much more emotionally rich than I think people realize, and they're emotionally rich without being but still quite accessible. For example, I think if E.G. Taylor Swift was decided she wanted to do a musical, she might struggle because her lyrics are much more like, her name was Sally, she went to the shops. Like, they're very specific. Whereas Steps' ones are emotionally specific, but they tell a story without it being too, do you know what I mean? Like it's basically, I was just, when they came back in 2017, I was just listening to some of their old songs and I was like, this is, just started like imagining them in the context of a show. And then before I knew it, I'd like written out a whole little story. So it just kind of happened organically, you know? That was a really babbly way of saying, because they're good songs.
No, but it's so true. What you've just said is like, I mean, anyone that's listening knows that I'm an actor and do musicals, and it's like the amount of jukeboxes that happen where there's some that work and there's some that don't, and I will be polite on that. But when the ones that work, I'm talking about, you know, things like your Mamma Mia's or your Our House or your And Juliet. I think they work because they take the songs seriously, but also the songs themselves, as you've just said, they're not so specific about something. They're emotionally specific. I mean, take, you know, ABBA were always the blueprint for that. That's why Mamma Mia is so successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go ahead, Craig. Fire away.
Oh, okay. So why? I mean, we sort of talked about it, but why do you think? Because you obviously like music from the 90s and noughties. Why do you think Steps' music has endured so much more than a lot of other acts from the time? Because I've got to mention it. Like, you had Scooch and you had More Than I Needed to Know.
Yeah.
And Steps did, they obviously had the relationship with Pete Waterman. They had that going for them. But they were still part of a much bigger movement of bubblegum pop. But yet their music has probably endured more than a lot of music from that time.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, really. I mean, you mentioned Scooch. I mean, More Than I Need to Know. What a effing song.
What a banger.
I don't know. What a banger. I don't know. I guess it's just like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like for me, it's just, there is an element of nostalgia to it, but also they're just really great. They're really great songs, but they're also were sold really well in like a really like fun, accessible way. Whereas a lot of times you would get, I don't know, this is great. There's just something I think all the stars just basically aligned, didn't they? Like, they had something magic as a 5-piece. They were packaged really well. The songs were really good. They came along at a really integral, I mean, I guess you could say it's about any act because everyone's a certain age at some time. But for like a generation of fans, they came along at just the right time. I think the trajectory was done really well. Like the way that they sort of, I know it was very hard on them, the way they relentlessly released music, but they kept up a great momentum with all their like double A sides and albums coming out their ears and tours doing, I don't know. I think basically everything contributed to it. Like, I think of a lot of other acts that maybe aren't in the same position, that like are still have been able to cash in on the nostalgia now, but not to quite the same extent. I think maybe they just didn't, their discography isn't as big as Steps is. They didn't quite have the same quote unquote X factor that Steps did. I don't know. I think it's a bit of everything. Sorry, that was really babbly, but yeah.
Perfect.
So, in terms of their material, we obviously talked about some of the songs, but, and again, is there a deep cut? So it's someone who maybe knows the songs, maybe knows the singles. Is there a Steps deep cut from any point in their career that you think this would really surprise people if they heard this?
Oh, I don't know.
Not experienced. Not experienced.
She was older.
That would surprise people, but not in that way.
She was older.
I think there's. I don't know. I think maybe there's some good stuff on Buzz that might. Sorry, like I guess Paradise Lost is a big one that people come back to a lot, isn't it? Or there's some stuff on Tears on the Dance Floor that I think, like stuff like Happy or the titular song from that album. I don't know. I guess those are probably the two albums that you could. Not that there isn't amazing stuff on every album, but I think if you wanted to get new like people that haven't already latched on to what they already think of when they think of Steps, I think maybe there's probably stuff from there. I think I'd probably say Paradise Lost, although there's so many you could pick, isn't there? because my favorite, I love some of the deep cuts on like Step 1 and Steptacular. Never Say Never Again and Back to You from the first album. Love them to bits. But if you're trying to get a new convert along, I don't know if those songs would do it. Whereas maybe something on Buzz or Tears on the Dance Floor would. I don't know. Maybe. What do you think?
I mean, so I agree with that. I think the one song that always stands out to me, because I do love a ballad, is on Steptacular. You're Everything That Matters to Me. The love.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Gorgeous.
that's a beautiful.
Yes.
And it's so different to anything else they did. And I have said to people, listen to this Step song.
Yeah.
I feel like, all right. But I think of that as something really different, really early on, but really different.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah. Oh, that's a great one. Yeah.
I completely agree. The end of Steptacular song, Everything That Matters to Me, is beautiful. But I think you were talking about Tears on the Dance Floor, and if you're gonna go for like I wasn't gonna use the word generic, but like it's an absolute pop banger that's not necessarily like as camp or kitsch as what they would usually have done. I think I posted a tweet, if we're still allowed to call them that, about I Will Love Again. And I think I said, when is Claire Richards getting a Grammy Award for Best Vocal Performance for I Will Love Again? Because I just think that is such a great like entry song from like newer Steps.
Yeah. The drama. Stunning.
The drama. Such drama. Right, Shaun. So your musical, you've mentioned it, and you've obviously mentioned you used to do you've done an unofficial one, and in that there was a pun based on 5, 6, 7, 8. In this one, it's set in Better Best Bargains, which I just think is genius. Has there ever been any earlier pun-based concepts that you can tell us about with any other of the names?
I don't actually think there has. The first meeting I had about this project was with a lovely producer who's not working on it now, but he was amazing. And I don't know where this note came from, but he said the first thing he said to me was either it came from the band or someone in their team who was like, can it be set in a superstore? And I was like, oh my God, yes. Because I've been thinking like it needs to be something more elevated than a drab office. We only did that because we didn't have the budget to decorate the set with anything other than IKEA tables on wheels. And then I just put as a placeholder, like, oh, it's called Better Best Bargains. Fine. And then like I kept like thinking, oh, I should probably change that. And everyone was like, no, don't you change that. That's staying. So I don't think there actually has been. I think that was something that I initially put in thinking I'm going to have to change this at some point. And everyone was like, no, don't, don't change that. So no, I don't think there has. Has there? I can't think of anything. No. No.
Well, I thought it was genius I just love that was in the initial press release as well. Wow, that was bold.
just leading with that. Come join us at Better Best Bargain.
You go ahead, Craig.
Oh, well, okay. We've talked about the group and we've talked about their material.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the solo material.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on? Let's go. H and Claire's album, because unapologetically, I love it.
Yeah. Did they? Was this a fever dream? I swear, when I was on holiday last year, I went on social media and they'd done like a performance together.
They did.
Was I drunk or hungover? Oh my God!
They did. They were at Cardiff Pride. I was on at Cardiff Pride on the Saturday. Sophie Ellis Bextor. Knew Claire was performing on the Sunday. Knew that H was presenting. But I didn't go, and I was like, this literally happened on my doorstep, and I wasn't there, and I will never, ever, ever get over that.
Wow! Oh my God! What I always like. DJ is a tune, though, isn't it? I will say I think DJ is a big tune. Also, Faye Tozer's solo album When. It's not too late.
Why have we never had it? Like,
I don't. Her song on Buzz with I can't remember what it's called. It's the Cyndi one with the Cyndi Lauper co-write.
If You Believe.
Yes, I love that song.
So good.
Give us more, and she could do anything. She could do a Kimberly Walsh. She could do a Show Tunes album. She could do a Disco Diva album. Take your pick. When? So yeah, and the there was a track on when Lisa brought out her repackaged album last year. There was a track on it, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was so beautiful. I want to say like bound and not bound and gagged. That's not it. Bound and broken, broken and
that would tie in with Unleashed.
yeah. I can't remember what it was called. That's awful of me. But there was a song that I hadn't heard before, but it was on the repackage that she does. Anyway, I think the Steps solo canon is great, and it's not too late to build on it. It's what I would say. Also, sorry, just fully rambling here. I was in Sheffield the other week, and there's a little gay bar in Sheffield that we went to, and they played Claire's version of Euphoria, directly followed by Claire's version of Enough Is Enough, and I was like, this is the future. This is the future. this is utopia. This is where we are.
So when that album came out in the summer, I was doing a show, and on my way in to the theatre every day, I was listening to bits of the album. Honestly, I can't. It's a core memory of the first time I heard her and Delta sing "Enough Is Enough," and I think I texted you, Craig, and I was like, this is like I've just gone to gay heaven.
Yeah,
it's just
and there's
just
a remix
amazing.
of that. I can't remember who did it, but there's a remix of that as well, which fully goes off.
Do you
love that,
Shaun? Did you mean "Burnt Out and Falling"?
Yes, that's it. Not bound and gagged. That's not bound and gagged. That's not. Those are different words. But yeah, I would also be really intrigued to know what Lee would do if he was given like a solo thing, because the track, like his co-write on Buzz is "Turn Around." Is that right? Which is like an all-time great Steps album track in my mind. So I would be fascinated to know what he would do as well. I think I think they've said they were on a break for a few years. I would like all 5 of them, please, to give me something.
When it comes to the musical, and obviously, what's the most exciting thing about the process of putting on a show that you're excited about? Like, tell us about that.
I'm trying not. For me so far, the exciting thing has just been like putting it all together and creating these characters and weaving the songs in, like having so much fun. We've done, I think, 3 full drafts of the script now, and then we'd been spending a lot of time before that doing like story breakdowns and story treatments and stuff, and it's just been so much fun. Like, you know, on Britain's Got Talent, when they stand there with everyone's Polaroids, I feel like I've been doing that, but with like songs. Like, let's put that one there, let's put that one here, let's take this one out, let's put that one in. That whole process was, and still is, because we are still polishing it up. This is so fun. That's the most fun bit. In terms of the actual like production of it, I'm not trying not to think of that too much, because I will have a full meltdown, because we were at the Alexandra a couple of weeks ago for the launch, and it's not a small theatre. It's quite sizable. So we're not trying to think about that too much. But just the whole process of putting it all together is really fun, and also it's really amazing to work with the producers that we've got at Rodeo, because I just feel like everyone's on the same page. Everyone's a fan. Everyone's got really great ideas. And just the whole, sometimes I've done plays before and things and various work projects where it feels very like stressful and like, oh my God, I can't crack this story. Blah, blah, blah. And even on times on this where you have been like, oh my God, how do we solve this story issue? It's felt like really exciting trying to crack it, and then really exciting when we do crack it. So I would say just the whole process of putting it together. And there's such a rich discography. I can't remember how many songs we've got in it at the minute, but could quite happily do like a 7-hour version, like just like shovel in loads more songs. Yeah. Shovel in loads more. Like the first draft, which I did last summer, was, I think, probably would have run at about 7 million hours. But I had like album tracks in there. I had like there was so much music in that version, and I'm like, one day there will be an extended mix.
Was it experienced in there?
It was not, but it's not too late. It's not too late. We've got the workshop is another month away, so anything can happen.
I'm going to go off script. And you might not be able to answer this. Is there or was there ever a song you were like, maybe a single, but you were like, that is absolutely not going in. I'm just not going in.
There wasn't one from my perspective. There were a couple that I tried being put in, and then I had the feedback back I never knew where each bit of feedback came from the early drafts. It went out to producers, it went out to the band, it went out to the band's team, and I would have the feedback back like, we're not doing that. That song's not going in. I'd be like, oh, okay. But there was never any that I was outright ruling out. We haven't been able to squeeze every song in just because I think there's got like 33 singles, I think, if you include the AA size as well. So it's like we can't physically squeeze them all in. But there were never any that I personally was like, that one's not going in. But I think there might have been some songs that the band and or their team were like, no, not that one. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, what's it? Speaking of the band, obviously they are, in terms of their involvement. What has it been like to work with them? Because obviously, if you did your unofficial show, and now you're the head honcho writer. What's it been like to work with them?
Amazing. Like what's great is that some of the ideas that they have been bringing to the table are either things that I was thinking as well, or ideas that have really gone down really well, like make a lot of sense and have helped to unlock something else. For example, there was one story, one character's plot, which after the first couple of drafts, I love this character so much, but their plot just like didn't feel like it was quite click in. And then we had some feedback from the band that were like, what about if it was this? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's it. And I just felt like that just solved it. I only met them in person for the first time a couple of weeks ago, which probably was for the best because I would have had a full meltdown if I had not had time. But they've been regularly sending feedback through, like feedback's been coming through, and it's all been great. It's all been really, as I said, the idea for the supermarket, I don't know if it came from their team or from them, but it definitely came from that side somewhere, which was just the thing that I needed to feel like the setting was starting to sing. So yeah, it's great. I feel like everyone's on. No one knows Steps' brand like Steps, and I feel like that's obviously one of the reasons why they've been around for so long. They understand the assignment. They've all worked in musical theatre as well to some degree. So yeah, they get it. They just get it, which is great, because the nightmare scenario is letting them down. But I feel like we're all on the same page.
I think you hit the nail on the head there of why they've continued to be so successful, because they understand their brand, and they've been very protective over this as a show. Because I know I had heard whispers from a couple of different theatre people and producers and stuff over the years that had said like, oh, I think it's happening. Yeah. And so I imagine it's had quite a journey, and obviously now it's in your hands, which is an amazing achievement. Like,
yeah, no pressure. I don't know.
No pressure.
I know they'd been working on it for a few years before I came aboard. I don't know what happened in that time and what ideas they were looking at and that kind of thing. But it's really exciting now that we're all like, we had a read through a few weeks ago, and everyone seemed, there's still bits we need to refine, which which was one of the benefits of doing a read through. But like, it felt like everyone was on the same page, which is really exciting. No one was like, oh God, get him out. So that might still happen, but yeah, all good.
Amazing.
Well, I personally cannot wait for Words Are Not Enough to get its full 3.5-minute stage treatment. The
5
treatment
reprises.
it deserves.
Curtain call. All that.
It's going to be the new Defying Gravity, the new Let It Go. It's going to sweep Broadway.
You'll see it at the Olivier's at some point in your dream.
So, my last question. I can't let you come to the interview and not ask you a Kelly Clarkson question, because you are the Kelly Clarkson stan.
Yeah.
So, if you could pick one Step song for her to do karaoke to, what would it be?
Oh my God. The first one that jumped into my mind, and I don't know if it's too obvious, so I don't know if it needs to be something else. The first one that jumped into my mind was Story of a Heart. I just think she'd sing the hell out of it. But maybe it'd be more fun if she did something that's really like production, and then like did a fun, like she did with J-Lo's Waiting for Tonight. She did like a all right, different version of it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe she'd do a really fun like Love's Got a Hold of My Heart or something. I don't know. But I do feel like she'd sing the hell out of Story of a Heart. That's the one that came to me first. So let's say that. What do you reckon?
I know what you're going to say, Matty. I know exactly what you're going to say.
What do you think I'm gonna say?
You're going to say Scared of the Dark, because Scared of the Dark is the answer to everything.
and with good reason.
I was so predictable. I was like, guys, I'm sorry, there is only one answer to this question.
That would sound great, to be fair, with the band. That would be great. That would be great.
Kelly with the band, full strings.
Yeah.
Like, she'd have, like, a hair done up. Oh, like, I can see it.
Great.
Halloween-y. Yeah, we know how obsessed I am with Scared.
Sometimes the obvious answer is the best answer. That is the obvious answer for a reason.
Well, I'm going to say One for Sorrow, but just to make it on brand, the Tony Moran US mix of that would be vocals and production. It would be perfect.
Amazing. Great. She should just do she should do the Platinum Mega Mix. That's what she should do.
Well, my last question then is, we've touched upon this a few times, and we asked the guys over at the Steps podcast this question as well.
Oh yeah.
But if you, obviously, Steps over the years have been very, like, not famous for, but it's been part of their brand to do incredible cover versions that, like, sort of completely reshape the song. You know, things like Chain Reaction, Tragedy. If you could have Steps cover any song and do their own version of it, what would it be?
Ooh.
Make it their own.
Okay. You know, I'll think of a really amazing answer for this in probably about an hour. But the first thing that was made this whole month, I've been absolutely mainlining the new Zara Larsson album, because it's just so pop and so Swedish and so now. And I think something on there like I don't know, maybe something like Can't Tame Her from her, or something Rina Sawayamari. Maybe they do a great version of that. I love it when they pick a song like that Vincent track they did, like Hard to Forget, a couple of years ago. Just pick a song by an act that, like, the gays might know about, but, like, the wider world might not know about, and they just do, like, the Stepsified, but like something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like an act that the wide. I mean, Rina Sawayama and Zara Larsson are both very famous, but like, and if it was like I'm trying to think of something along those lines. There's so much they could. I mean, they've got lots of options, haven't they? They could do great stuff. What did you have an answer to that question?
I'm just living in a world in which that they're covering Rina Sawayama songs. Like, honestly, that's the world I want to live in.
Frankenstein, great, do it.
the multiverse.
Yeah.
What would you say, Craig?
I mean, I don't really listen to much current music, so I would struggle with that. so having just it's not current, but having just written about it, I'm going to pick a cover of a cover. I would love Steps to do I Promised Myself, that the 18s did as their final single.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
And I'm not just trying to promote the website there, but that's such a great cover. Yeah, I know, sorry. It's such a great cover version, and it's already, it would work. They could do that. If they'd be great at it.
Yeah, amazing. I would be really up for someone bringing the 18s music into the current, like,
Closer to Perfection. Steps, come on, Closer to Perfection. Do it.
Get on it.
Hear us.
Well, I think we've had this has been lovely. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us, Shaun. It's been
thank you.
Really lovely. So if you want to listen to Here and Now by Steps, and why wouldn't you, then you can find it on all streaming. And also, if you want to go see Here and Now, the Steps musical, Shaun, tell us some information about the show.
Well, man, it's on it's November the 9th. It's the 9th, isn't it? I think it's the 9th to the 20th. I've stared at that ATG calendar so many times, but the dates, I'm just like, I'm in Birmingham at the end of the year. I think it's the 9th to the 24th. Let's go with that. All of the Saturdays are sold out, I think, which is amazing. But yeah, it'll be there for then. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, if all goes well, then we'll see it again in 2025. But we'll see. For now, yeah, amazing. I think you can go to thestepsmusical.com or follow at The Steps Musical on all your favourite social platforms.
There we go. She's trained. Right. Craig, where can they find us?
Right, well, Can't Stop the Pop has a website where there are over 400 reviews, including Here and Now, because that is what we were talking about in this episode, which you can find at can'tstopthepop.com. We're also on social media. I am at Can't Stop Pop on X and Can't Stop _the Pop on Instagram.
And I am Matkins Actor on X and Matt_Atkins9 on Instagram.
And Shaun, where can our listeners find you on our socials?
I've just checked. It is the 9th to the 24th. I've just checked.
There we go.
I'm Shaun Kitchener on Twitter and Shaun Kitchener Bentley on Instagram. I don't know why they're different, but she's married on one, she's not on the other.
Oh, well, there you go. She's free and single on one and she's married on the other. There you go. You can find us also on TikTok at Can't Stop the Pop Podcast. And we are now at Can't Stop the Pop on YouTube as well.
Ooh.
So you can find all
so you can watch this episode. If you're listening to it, you can actually watch it as well. And just to entice you, I've got a lovely shirtless picture of Lee Latchford Evans behind me for
twigged that.
for the whole video. So that's going to get the views.
and I also have the brand new Steps vinyls, which arrived literally the past few days. They are absolutely gorgeous. I have the entire collection behind me.
Amazing.
Well, do get in touch. Let us know what you think of Here and Now, what you think of the show, what you think of Shaun. Please get your tickets for the Here and Now musical. And also, if any of our listeners, if you are going to the gala night, we will be there. So say hello.
Amazing.
Yes, we will be at the gala night, which we're extremely excited for. Maybe we'll wear deeper shade of blue outfits. Who knows?
Maybe.
We might be giving away merchandise for our own.
What?
We're gonna get kicked out, aren't we? They're like, you can't tout your own merchandise in here.
Amazing.
No, Craig, I've been to enough press nights and things that I've realised that is not okay. We will not be giving out any. Oh.
My plant's just
the bush
fallen over. It's all going.
Well, if you've loved this, leave us a review, but only a good one, wherever you get your podcast from.
Thank you so much for listening, and join us next time for more
Can't Stop the Pop.